you feel the vibes?
What's up, YouTube? It's Carolina Calvin coming back to you with another video. In this video, we wanted to do a spoiler-free video spoiler-free review of Spider-Man Far From Home, or Far From the Source Materials, what we have dubbed it as. And video's gonna be pretty vague because movies like this with so many different things going on in the movie, you can easily spoil it. So we're gonna try to keep it as vague as possible. If we accidentally, if a spoiler gets slipped in there, my bad. But we're gonna try our best not to spoil it. We're gonna have the spoiler review coming up probably Friday or Saturday. We're gonna get Mitch up there. He has not seen the movie, so we're just gonna wait for him. So we're gonna do the spoiler video and pretty much talk about Easter eggs and everything that happened in the movie. Overall, well, I watched the movie earlier today, and overall, I'm gonna talk about things I liked, things I didn't like. You know how typically a review goes. Things I liked. I think the acting from majority, from like Tom Holland, Jake Gyllenhaal, who I personally think his acting was some of the best in the movie. That was pretty good. The visuals, stuff like that. Visuals, the sound, choreography, all that stuff. You expect to be great, and it was great here. Definitely a step up from Homecoming. But for me, I think it's a whole lot of bad. Now, if you kept up with me, you kept up with MG. We don't really like, the portrayal of Spider-Man in the MCU. Now, I don't think this movie helped out in that way. And that's really not a spoiler. It's just how we felt about how the movie went. I think it still suffers from the same problems that, of course, Homecoming suffered from. Any other time you've seen Spider-Man in MCU, it still suffers from that same problem. If you know what that problem is, I'm not gonna say it here, but if you've seen our previous videos, you kind of know what I'm referring to right now. And that seems to overshadow the entire movie for the most part, and it's really annoying. And it honestly, sorry, I'm gonna turn my phone down. It honestly kept me from really enjoying. If you go into it with the mindset of, okay, let's say you don't keep up with the books, you didn't really watch the original trilogy, let's say the first two Raimi movies, you didn't really watch those, you didn't really care about those, and you just watched the MCU movies. You liked Homecoming, you're more than likely gonna like this movie. But I think the first, can we say how much of the first half of the movie would you say was pretty boring?
Just the first act. If you split it into 3 acts, I would say the first act.
Yeah, the first act focusing on a lot of the high school shit. They need to get out of the high school shit because that's starting to get on my nerves. I think the supporting cast, referring to like Ned, Zendaya playing MJ, which I assume is Michelle Jones, whatever. Flash. These characters are weak, man. And I know people like Zendaya. I know people like her portrayal in the movie. It was weak, in my opinion. She was bland. She was boring. And I know it was supposed to be, kind of an awkward thing. She was supposed to be some humor there. I think the humor might have been too much of it. So, it's kind of hard to take some of the moments serious outside of really that the final act. But I don't think the jokes, for me personally, they're a bit cringy. There's some good ones here and there. I guess if you throw enough jokes at us, they might end up being funny. But I just think overall, the jokes didn't land. The first act of the movie, like MG said, very, very boring to me. The action's good. You had a good villain. I thought Jake Gyllenhaal did a great portrayal of that. Seeing Samuel Jackson, Happy Hogan, those those characters were great. It's just the things that make Spider-Man Spider-Man is what detracts most from me in the movie. And it's the same thing Homecoming suffers from. That doesn't feel like Spider-Man. I know, like what the hell are you talking about? It just doesn't feel like Spider-Man. I think Tom Holland does a good job, like, of especially when he's in the suit. I think he does a good job of that. The way the banter and all that. We said this in Homecoming. We thought he did a good job in that regard, and that continues here. It's just supporting characters and just the overall story in itself. I don't like that kind of story for Spider-Man, personally. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they've drawn a line in the sand.
Well, clearly.
I think I don't think it's for our generation.
No.
And I think what they're doing is, and I think you could say this more so than every other of the MCU movies, is that they made this one specifically for the teenage demographic, so they can grow up with the character. I mean, because if you look at a lot of the other characters, I mean, they were really way more adult centric. So it's not necessarily something that was for kids.
Yeah, it is clearly for, like, because I mean, if you really look at, like, I mean, maybe people have seen The Amazing Spider-Man, but that original trilogy, there's a lot of people watching these movies that haven't seen those. We're talking about, 2001 is when the first one came out? So
I think so.
So we're talking about movies that are pretty old. So they understand, like, okay, that group, they're much older. Now we got a new group of people, kids, people in the early 20s. People in their 20s, period, that really didn't see those movies. And also the MCU, it brought in so many fans, so that's why they felt as though they could do a new portrayal of Spider-Man. And that's fine and all, but I can say it's, like, not for me. Like, if someone else likes it, that's cool. That they like what they like. I don't like the portrayal of Spider-Man. Even if you look at it as, let's go to, like, Civil War, let's go to Homecoming. Even if you look at it in terms of, like, a character progression, you're creating a character, and of course Spider-Man's been around since the 60s, 70s, or whatever. When you create a character, let's say it's a new character, you don't want that character, as you go through their movies, you don't want them connected to another character, because that diminishes the character you're trying to build up. So they're trying to build up this new Spider-Man, yet why is he connected to another character? To make that connection to the rest of the MCU? And this, that's been a problem. That's been our biggest problem with this Spider-Man. He lacks the independence. You saw in Homecoming. The supporting characters, which is probably some of the worst casting for the supporting characters. No fault on them. No fault on them as actors, actresses. But in terms of the characters that they're supposed to portray, it's not what it's supposed to be. And I've seen people say, well, that it's kind of like a modernizing of it. I guess, kind of going back to MG's point, that's the demographic that they're, it's that younger demographic that they're trying to portray, push the character towards. It's why he's in high school, which, for me personally, I've been done with him being in high school for a while, but it's them trying to build up a new character. I would just say, as a fan of the character, been a fan for years, I personally just don't like the portrayal of how they've handled Spider-Man in the MCU.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, I do think that if you don't care about the source material, or don't know about it, I think this was a home run.
Yeah, you're probably gonna look very high.
I don't think it really gets much better than this for that crowd, right? Like this, it was a good movie from just an individual movie standpoint. It's just the fact of the name that's attached to it. Like if it was another character,
oh man,
no big deal, right? But when you got that character specifically, it ruins a lot when you go that direction for the hardcore fans. So, I said it with Homecoming when we did the Homecoming review. That hey, if you're a fan of the source material, you hated the movie. Mm-hmm. If you're if you're not a fan or don't care, you probably liked it a lot. And I think this one is even to the bigger extreme than that.
Yeah, it's definitely more of like we saw it kind of keep going in that direction, but it went more like based on the trailers. We did a video on the trailers. It's gone even more in that direction than I originally thought from looking at those trailers.
Yeah. I did think the comedy was funny. I liked the comedy that was in it.
I think it landed at certain points, but
more specifically Ned.
Yeah.
I thought he had a good showing, just from an acting standpoint. But there's just certain things you can't change about Spidey, in my opinion. And he changed it.
Yeah, it was like it's no other major character, has seen this many changes to not only like their history, why they became who they are, but also future stories after that. Like Spider-Man's been the character that they changed the most, and you have to ask that question: why? Is it because of the old movies, and they don't want to kind of retread over those old movies, or is it because Disney's like, well, we got money, you're gonna come watch it anyway, and this part of the MCU machine, you're gonna watch it, so we're gonna kind of do what we want. He's gonna wear the costume as Spider-Man, but I think the essence of the character over, like in terms of like how the stories, like I don't want to spoil nothing because I'm probably just about to do it. Like I said, I think Tom Holland captures like in the suit. He captures that side of Spider-Man. I think he does a really good job of that. And I don't fault him for anything what's going on with Spider-Man. It's the writers. It's whoever, directors above that. It's those guys who are putting this story together. Who's telling Tom Holland, "Oh, we want you to say this." These guys are making the scripts. It's not on him. He's just doing what he's told. He's doing what he's paid to do. Same with all these other actors. I don't fault them. It's a lot of it's just Disney arrogance because they know they could get away with it. And from seeing people on Twitter, you go to Rotten Tomatoes, you look at the scores. User scores are great. Critic scores are great. It's a home run for them. Twitter, Facebook, whatever. It's a home run. Most people got it as if not their favorite Spider-Man movie, it's right up there with their favorite Spider-Man movie. And you know what? People do that.
I would put it third for me. I would put it third on my list.
You would put it third?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, Spider-Man 2 and then the original Spider-Man are top two. But I think this was... I don't count that one, though. It's animated.
Fair enough.
I mean, I get everybody trying to count it because it's still fresh in everybody's memory, but
it ain't got nothing to do with Peter.
Since when have we ever included animated stuff when we made movie lists?
Right. And
we don't do that for any of the DC stuff.
It's definitely because they had nothing but animated shit in front.
Yeah, like so. I mean, I don't understand why we're doing it first. I guess people are trying to reach for because it's newer stuff, obviously.
Pretty much.
I don't include Into the Spider-Verse is great though. I mean, if
Oh,
that
yeah.
if Into the Spider Verse was included, then that would be third, and Far From Home would be fourth. But I don't include the animated stuff.
Me neither.
But so I mean, I would have a third. I mean, I think it's better than all the other Spider-Man movies outside of the first two original.
I'll give it that. I'll give it that. I definitely think it's better than personally Homecoming, just from
Oh, leaps and bounds better.
just from action. If you go into just for the like seeing action set pieces and visuals, better than Homecoming. And one thing I think Homecoming and Far From Home has done, good villains. Just in terms of their portrayals, Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio, I thought he did a good job for what he was told to do. Of course, Michael Keaton as Vulture, he did a great job. So I think and this one thing the MCU movies suffer from is it's a villain. They have a villain problem. So I think Spider-Man hasn't really had that. With this two solo movies.
You got a good list of villains.
Exactly. So they got a bunch of villains that they can pick from, and it kind of that's what kind of sucks, that it's such a departure from the character, in my opinion, because Spider-Man has one of the best rogue gallery of villains. He's right. You know, you could definitely argue him with Batman. A lot of people like his over Batman's.
I would argue his over Batman. I think Batman's is top heavy, but I think once you start getting to some of the B, C tier ones, it's kind of like.
And Spider-Man was able to pull off one of his lower tier ones in terms of the Vulture. A lot of it goes to Michael Keaton and his job that he done, but you got to give them credit for putting him there with that character and telling a pretty solid story behind that. So I'll give him credit for that. For me, it's not the movie. This sounds weird, but it's not necessarily the movie itself, the makeup of the movie, or some of all the stuff I've talked about. It's Spider-Man himself. It's what makes Spider-Man Spider-Man. I think that kind of says it perfectly. It's what makes Spider-Man Spider-Man is what I don't like. That I felt as though that the first two movies of the Raimi trilogy kind of told, where Spider-Man is independent character. There are some things that I won't get into that I thought were done pretty good.
Yeah.
In Far From Home, but obviously that's a spoiler, so I can't talk about that one. But
I'll say this, and the Spidey isn't street level enough.
yeah, and to me, what annoys me,
It's too grandiose for Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm. Like this is your second movie, and you're not in New York, and you try like even in Homecoming,
They were in DC.
you were in DC for that a large portion of the movie. You were in DC, like you were in New York, obviously more so than Far From Home. But come on, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, New York. Is the next movie gonna be in New York?
I don't know. We ain't seen him save a neighborhood yet. So I mean, it's a little too grandiose. I mean, anybody who's familiar with Spidey from the comics, a lot of his villains are street level or local, meaning his general vicinity. He's not really the guy in the comics who always fights the guy who's threatening the entire planet.
Yeah, that's something. You'll have Iron Man, Thor. Some of these more powerful, like, or who has more resources. Those type of people. They will fight. If they wanted to do a team up, then they'll ask Spider-Man. He won't come up there like, "Oh, Mr. Stark, please, Mr. Stark, can I join the team, Mr. Stark?" No, they will ask him, and maybe he'll say no, maybe he'll say yes. So that's how I went. So sometimes he'll work with Cap, sometimes he work with Iron Man, but he wasn't kissing their feet.
No, not at all.
So,
And I think that's the problem when you have a you have a hero who, from an age perspective, they've made him so much younger. You know, at the point in Homecoming or Civil War when he's gotten his powers, those dudes had already been at it like 8 years.
Yep.
You know, I mean, like you mentioned, I mean, Spider-Man's been around since the '60s. Mysterio been around since the '60s as well, I believe. I think he was within the first 5 issues. I think he was within the first 5 issues of Spider-Man in the '60s. And then I don't think he got his powers until like issue 11, 12, or 13. But you know, they treat Spider-Man like he's a new character. They, you know, I mean, they're kind of like they treat him like he's Deadpool, basically. Where like he was invented in the '90s or something.
Yeah, and you're talking about characters like he's been the 1A, like he's been number one, on top of the mountain character for Marvel in terms of books, merch. Look, I mean, you got the PS4 Spider-Man game that flew off shelves. Everyone knows who Spider-Man is. And if you didn't see those other movies, for the younger crowd, even before we saw Spider-Man in Civil War, you knew who Spider-Man was.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm curious as to who.
What's that?
Who came around after Spider-Man?
Are you talking about like other heroes?
Yeah, just in general.
I know Spider-Man definitely, because with Spider-Man, they first showed him. I think it was 1962. Amazing Fantasy 15 was when he first shown. It wasn't even his own book. I know that the X-Men didn't come to the 70s.
He definitely wasn't part. Okay, he wasn't part of the Golden Age. So
that's like that's what Cap and like Iron Man and them were there.
I don't even see Iron Man in the Golden Age.
I'm pretty sure.
Widow, Namor.
Cap was back there.
Iron Man 1963.
Okay. I know Cap was like in the 40s, wasn't
he? Yeah. So, yeah, as far as like the Golden Age, like the 40s and the early 50s and
Fantastic
before that.
And shit like that.
Yeah, you're talking about like Namor, Vision, Cap, Winter Soldier, Black Marvel, Black Widow, Electro, Angel, who people forget about Angel being one of the earliest Marvel characters. Mm-hmm. You're talking about in the 60s is when the explosion hit, because that's when you get a Hulk, Spidey, which Hulk was only around a couple months before Spidey.
A lot of people talk about
Thor and Spidey debuted the same month.
Mm.
Let's see. Iron Man and Spider-Man came out a year before Iron Man.
Yep. And think about Spider-Man, like he didn't. We kind of giving a history lesson here. He was first shown in the '60s, but he didn't really blow up until like the '70s. The '60s where we saw. That's when we saw a lot of the Avengers. Hell, didn't they even do some live action even back then with the Avengers? I know you had the Hulk TV show, but I remember there being like at least Iron Man. What was it? Iron Man, Hulk, and Thor kind of did like a really crappy live action thing, TV show thing or whatever. Like the Avengers in the '60s, that's when they really tried to push them. Like the Fantastic Four, they were early on. It was in the '50s. Of course, they've gotten a push throughout. But Avengers, that's when they kind of really blew up. I would say in the '60s, once you got.
Spidey was there before the Avengers. Before the official Avengers were formed.
He was there before officially the official Avengers was there. But once Spider-Man blew up, those guys kind of took a back seat in the '70s and the '80s. And then the X-Men came around. It was Spider-Man.
X-Men came around.
It was Spider-Man and X-Men for Marvel. Really?
Yeah,
As the
X-Men
top
came around a
dogs?
year after Spidey. X-Men and X-Men, Strange, Iron Man, all came the same year. Nick Fury, Strange,
Yeah.
the Avengers, all of that was 1963.
Yeah, and it took a while for like the X-Men books to really get going. But like once the '70s hit, from that and Spider-Man, that's when they started dropping the real good content.
But yeah, they treat Spider-Man like he's
But they treat him like he's, I mean, DC level character in the MCU. I don't think people notice it. Maybe, like I said, maybe it's just because they're not fans. They didn't like read a bunch of the books, or they didn't pay attention to some of the early movies or whatever. Or maybe they just don't see what's going on. Don't see it. Everybody knows the Spider-Man. People knew the hell Spider-Man was before these movies. I mean, you had people. You got a bunch of different cartoons, because he's one of the few characters that still get cartoon series. I know the Avengers get one. They got one. Well, they had the Avengers Assemble, but you had Ultimate Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man. The '90s Spider-Man. That helped his, like, for the mainstream. That helped his popularity immensely. It's kind of like the X-Men cartoon in the '90s. Helped their popularity immensely in terms of the mainstream. Most people who read the books, they knew who they were. They knew about them for years. So we're talking about a character who was one of the characters to carry Marvel on his back. For him to be treated the way in the MCU, I don't know. Maybe I personally like it. I think they just need to pull him away, like, and then a lot of it's on them trying to pull him. Oh, like, oh, look, it's a part of the MCU. Look, Iron Man's here. It's part of the MCU. They needed to pull him away from that. Honestly, they shouldn't have never did it like that in the first place. Like, they should have did it like, okay, like in the Civil War, Iron Man asks him to, we need help with this. He chooses to help him or not be this mentor figure for him, because no one wants to see Spider-Man be a mentor. No, not kind of like they don't want to see him have a mentor figure for a character that well known. Just doesn't need one to build, because a mentor figure, in the sense, in terms of like the book, comic books, or anything. Let's say they had material before you make a film adaptation, TV show adaptation. A mentor figure is there to kind of build up the character they're mentoring. Spider-Man don't need that. Spider-Man don't need that. And even then, after a certain amount of time, it's like, okay, you done doing that? And that goes for anyone. New characters, new or old characters. But I don't want the video to go too long. What score do you give a scale of 1 to 10? How about this? We'll do 2 grades. Graded on the movie and graded on the Spider-Man movie. That makes it for the people listening, it's probably gonna kind of go over your head, but bear with us.
If I graded as a Spider-Man movie, it's a 2 out of 10. And that's being generous.
Okay.
If I graded on just the movie scale, it's like a 9.
Okay. If I'm grading it on movie scale, 8. I'll still give it an 8. I think the first act, I just don't like the high school shit, boring, cringy jokes and shit. Some are good, some are bad, but action, all that other shit, choreography, CG, that's all freaking amazing. So as a movie, as it's constructed as a movie, that's an 8. As a Spider-Man movie, I'm with you. I'm not as low as a 2, to be honest with you. I'm at like a 5 as a Spider-Man movie, because I think there are some things that you're like, well, yeah, this kind of reminds me of he's fucking Spider-Man, but then it'll ruin that scene with some shit that someone like me, knowing things I've said, wouldn't like. So as a Spider-Man movie, like a 5. As a just kind of just grading it as a movie itself. And for people who are on that side of the fence, who just, they didn't keep up with Spider-Man, they're MCU fans. It's about an 8.5. So I think people like that will enjoy it more so than we will. But I think that does it. We're gonna come back with the spoiler video probably Friday or Saturday, and we're gonna get into the exact things that we did like, things we didn't like, and Easter eggs. There are Easter eggs in the movie, of course, as all MCU movies have. They have their Easter eggs. But let me know what you think down in the comment section. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. Thanks for watching.